Hi, my name's Bilal Ghafoor. I'm Director of GCC Data Protection along with Laura Palmariello. Considering the amount of guidance that has been published recently, there's a need to understand how to read the law, the regulations, and the guidance. So over the last few days, SDAIA has published at least 15 pieces of guidance in addition to the law and the regulations that have been around for a few months. This is a short guide to help you make sense of what you should read and when to stop you from getting overwhelmed. If we look at what's been published, so the law and the implementing regulations came out a few months ago. Then there was something around data transfers. That was one of the big awaited pieces of guidance. Registration with the government, policy development and guidance, and then something around breaches and complaints. But don't panic. The most important thing to do is not to panic, because you do not have to read all of these and make sense of all of these documents at the same time. You'll need to pick a sensible order depending on your privacy program. At the moment, it looks like the road is really uncertain and unsteady, but if you take it one step at a time, things will smooth themselves out. So we've suggested that you first read the law and the regulations. Then you look at whether you need to appoint a DPO, because there's no point initiating a whole data protection program without you deciding who's going to deliver it for you. And it's always best if you can get someone in-house, get them trained up properly, and that is something that we can of course do for you. Registration with the government, there will become a need to do that reasonably soon. Then you should start looking at your policies and guidance. And then finally, this is the bit that no one really wants to engage with too much, but it is what happens if there is a breach and how to manage complaints and what kind of complaints can be put in against you to SDAIA. So if we look at the law and the regulation, so the personal data protection law has been published. It's been out, as I say, for a few months. And the implementing regulations. Now, the one slightly confusing thing is that when you go on to the implementing regulations, they're actually split into two parts. The second part is the regulation on personal data transfer outside the kingdom. But it's really important that you don't think that that's the final word on data transfers, because that was the initial regulation. And after that, there is incredibly important guidance that's come out. So you should start off by having a read of these. They're quite long and difficult to read in quite a lot of ways, but we've made this a little bit easier. What we've done is we've put together an analysis, putting the law and the regulations together side by side, and we've put a summary in so that you understand what the law is telling you to do. Of course, it's really important that you know what your key personnel will be, so you can start looking at whether you need to appoint a data protection officer. They've very helpfully published some rules, and to help you navigate through the rules, they have provided a guidance tool to identify whether or not you need to appoint a DPO. We will be putting an English language one on our website very soon. It'll be important that you register with the government if you need to. So there are rules around governing the National Register of Data Controllers. A data controller is where you are responsible for determining what happens with the data that you're processing. So if, for example, you are a business, you have clients, you take in the details of your clients, you are responsible for that, and you're not doing it on anyone else's behalf. You are in charge of that. So you then become a data controller. If you have employees, as far as your employees are concerned, you are a data controller. So there is a need to register, and there are rules around registering. Most of our clients will fall into private entities, and these are the rules for them. And the rules for government entities are as follows, but by and large, all government entities have to register as data controllers anyway. There is a huge amount of policy and guidance. The ones that we would suggest that you start with are the Personal Data Processing Activities Records Guideline, the ROPA for short. This is essentially a data register. This is where you work out what personal data you have, where it's stored, what you do with it, where you collected it from, who you share it with, what security there is around it, etc., etc. This is the fundamental building block for a privacy program, and it's incredibly important that you understand what information you need to document to comply with the PDPL and in order to be able to build a privacy program. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know what data you have, you simply can't wrap security around it, you can't work out who you're sharing it with, you can't work out who else has access to it, etc. After that, and again, we're prioritizing this because your privacy policy, which is essentially your privacy notice, this is the document that will sit on your website. Because it's a public document, that's the first thing that people will see if they are interested in your compliance with the PDPL. It is very, very important that you look at this and you adhere to developing a good privacy policy so you can showcase to the world that you do care about privacy and that you are compliant. After that, there are a lot of other guidance, the privacy policy, minimum personal data determination guidelines. So one of the principles in the PDPL is that you should collect as little personal data as possible, but that will then fulfill the purpose for which you collect it. So if you check into a hotel, for example, while it might be absolutely correct that they want your name, they might want a phone number, they might want an address for billing, they might want financial details like a card or an account. But if they start asking you for your philosophical thoughts on things, then this is not relevant and not necessary for delivering the service. So you should only collect that information which you need, and you should minimize that data. This will come a little bit further down the line when you at some point need to destroy your personal data because you've retained it for as long as you need it, and after that you either need to destroy it, you can anonymize it, which means it becomes beyond what is related to an individual, or you can pseudonymize this, which is a whole topic within itself. Personal data disclosure case guideline, very, very helpful. Tells you how to disclose personal data to other entities. And finally, the privacy impact assessment, which under the GDPR is called the data privacy impact assessment, is the risk assessment that you will do whenever you are doing new or interesting things with data, using new technologies involved in surveillance or using or processing the data of a very, very large number of people, and the data is sensitive. So these risk assessments are also absolutely key under the PDPL. There are self-assessment guidelines. So SDAIA wants to help you to assess yourself and work out how well you are doing, and there is a self-assessment portal available to you. I would not read this very soon at the beginning. It's good when you're formulating your privacy program to read the self-assessment guidelines to understand how it is that you are supposed to be marked, and that's one of the things that we do when we put a privacy program in for you, is that we mark it against the self-assessment guidelines, and eventually you can log that guideline with SDAIA. Breaches and complaints, obviously, if something terrible happens, which unfortunately happens to almost every organization, it's very, very important that you are aware of how to report that breach to SDAIA, because there are strict guidelines around this. And when anyone makes a complaint against you, there is a portal where people can report these violations, and it's good to get an understanding of the kinds of violations that are reported and how they are reported, which will put you in a very, very good position to be able to deal with them. So again, all of these, this is a suggested roadmap, but it will very, very much depend on what your privacy program looks like. So we start with an audit and a data register. We then talk about your policies, guidance, and DPO, and then we go all the way over to cross-border transfers. In conclusion, the thing to do is not to panic about this, to think about what you need to understand at what point, to look out for whatever help and support you can get, and don't get overwhelmed by the number of documents that are out there. Keep in touch. Thank you very much. I hope this was helpful. Bye-bye.